The computer's doing whatever it wants today. It must be Columbus's ancestors. Hello, and welcome to Extra Connection. It's our race talk series. You know, Columbus, I was going to say Columbus's descendants. They're trying to stop this broadcast from happening or something. I don't know what's going on. I am one of your hosts, James Lott Jr. As you can tell from the title, Indigenous Peoples Day versus Columbus Day. It's just a jumping off point of what we're going to talk about today. You know, I don't do this series by myself because I couldn't without this gentleman. He's a white guy confronting racism. It's Jerry Karol. Hey, Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Happy. Well, which day is it?
You said something earlier made me laugh. Well, as we're deciding which day it is, I'm going to tell you how we do the church announcements. We are JLJ Media. I'm here on JLJ Media on YouTube, JLJ Media on all social media platforms, JLJ Media in every streaming audio service platform you can think of. This show, all of our previous episodes in this series are under Extra Connections. I always subtitle them Race Talk. So look, Extra Connections, Race Talk, and our episodes will come up there, which is about various pieces of this thing because there's so many different sides to Race Talk. And that's what she's telling you. We're on a little later than normal because we were on at 8 o'clock. And so you guys are like, oh, there, somebody's here. Good. You guys are coming in the chat room. Sorry, I had today. I should say this. Happy anniversary to my parents today. 24 years married. When I say parents, I'm about 25 years old. It's my stepdad and my mom. Like, but you're 53. Yes, my parents married when I was negative 25. No, my stepdad and my mom. He was the dad and stepdad. And I was actually taking care of them today. So that's why we're just a little late. But we are here. We're going to talk about it. Make sure we're in here. So subscribe. Yeah, subscribe. Like. All that stuff. Hi, JH fan. I'm glad you're here. Enjoy us what we're talking about. Okay. Hi, V. Lewis. Hello. Sure, everybody, come on in. We're talking race, you guys. So I'm letting you know now. Everybody offended? I'm not sorry. We say what we say in the show. It's a safe space for us to say our we feel, unless it's racist. Okay. Like I say about that. Hello, you guys. Okay. I'm going to read my famous or infamous list. And yes, some of you have been asking, I will one day possibly do a book with some kind of stuff about these lists. I have them all saved. So, and one day, another list from someone else may come. Who knows? It may happen. Yes. Yes, I missed you all today, too. I wasn't online at all today. I know it's weird for you guys. It was weird for me, too. But it was all family stuff today. So, family does come first. Okay, here we go. Here's my list. Checking it twice. Some of these folks are naughty and some of them are nice. Here we go. Ben Shapiro, Bill Mahar, Jordan Peterson, Dave Chappelle, Eddie Murphy, Candace Owens, Gary Owen, Stacey Dash, Herschel Walker, his son, Christian Walker, Carbon Copy the Movie, The Toy the Movie, Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor, Cleavon Little, Mel Brooks. Ab Fab, the TV series, My Old Home AfterBuzz TV, the City of Harlem, the Missing District of San Francisco, the Fillmore District of San Francisco, Compton, Brooklyn, Austin, Texas, Boston. Little Nas X, Olivia Newton-John, John Denver, Shania Twain, Faith Hill, Nelly and Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks. The Cleveland Indians, the Washington Redskins, the Atlanta Braves. Colin Kaepernick, NASCAR. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the song Baby It's Cold Outside. Former President Donald J. Trump, former President George W. Bush, former President Barack Obama, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Run DMC, Roxanne Shante, MC Light, Little Kim, Foxy Brown, Pam Grier, Jennifer Beals, Gene Roddenberry, Angie Dickinson, Kate and Allie, the TV show, Cagney and Lacey, MASH, Julia, Dominique Devereaux on Dynasty, Ellen Holly from One Life to Live, Tanya Peekins, Ruben Santiago Hudson, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Rita Moreno, Seda Cruz, Sofia Vergara, Lynette Romero, New Coke, MTV, Netflix. Days of Our Lives leaving television and moving to Peacock. Whoopi Goldberg, Fire Island the movie, RuPaul's Drag Race, Laverne Cox, Candace Cain, Caitlyn Jenner, Pose the TV series, Billy Porter, The Rock, Joe Osteen, Renee Brown, and Dr. Maya Angelou. That's our list today, and I always ask you what are your thoughts. Just when I always ask you my list.
Well, I mean, there's so many. As I've said before, I've stopped trying to write the things down on your list, and I just retain a few names here and there. And the one that's jumping out to me is Blazing Saddles, because I'm actually reading. I'll probably finish it tomorrow. Say Nothing. It's the history of the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And you know, people may remember that famous line from Blazing Saddles, which I won't repeat, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, I thought the movie was funny, but I didn't really understand it. It was like so over my head. But I know now, like the Irish, were at one point seen just as bad as the black people and the Chinese people until they became white and they were fine.
Yeah. I love it.
And so
exactly.
I'm learning. I mean, and not that this book has, anything to do with that. It's about, Northern Ireland and Britain and the IRA and the Ulster. But anyway, that's when I heard Blazing Saddles. And then if I recall, Cleavon Little got the role over Richard Pryor. And it was kind of I don't remember the exact politics of it, but there was something to it.
Yes, there was.
Yeah. So anyway,
yes,
that's one name in that list that I can comment on.
Yes,
I'm sure I can comment on about 300 of the names in that list, but that's the one I chose.
Much of this list and much of this is going on with today. Like right now, the Washington Redskins name has been changed. Cleveland Indians name has been changed. Right now, they're fighting. Atlanta Braves are fighting. And it's a lot of things that I've mentioned were watershed, life-changing moments in TV history, movie history, music history, where someone comes out and just because they are different has to fight against the odds to be kind of accepted. Or a philosophy comes out and everybody's just like, what are you talking about? Because my thing is, Jared, we may have talked this a little before, I've heard about the Irish being indentured servants and treated like there's words I will not say on here either that I have heard them called back in the day. And I think it's, and it's so a lot of times I'm seeing when someone I call it the pain Olympics. When you bring something up, well, no, mine was worse. Or no, we're the same as you guys. Like I've heard that a lot when someone's describing their particular people's stuff. And I always feel like right now there's stuff going on in Iran and the women over there. Like, I'm not Iranian, but I can understand how they feel and have compassion and understand what's going on. I am part Indigenous. My great-grandmother was born on a reservation, but I'm not Indigenous enough. I'm like 1/18th or whatever at this point. But I understand anybody who's a first person who feels certain things. I don't need to be that person to not understand and have compassion for that. So that's where we're kicking this off. We talked about the last time we want to talk about this, because I think it's an appropriate day because I say Indigenous People Day and others still say Columbus Day. And I know it's a choice. People are doing it on purpose. Either one. They're doing it on purpose for a reason, on purpose. And that's what always kind of kills me when it comes to something, a new idea comes along when it comes to race or sexuality or gender. That there's a lot of folks who we can't do that. So what are some of the opening things you feel when I say something like that? What are some opening things?
Yeah. Well, something you said, that it's a choice and it's an intentional choice. I would argue that it only became an intentional choice when, I don't know, call it a movement, call it an awareness, an awakening, where more and more people and institutions and stuff made the intentional choice to say, wait a second, Columbus, really? What about this? And then brought that, indigenous people to the forefront in all kinds of ways. And I used to be a teacher, so in schools and in politics and government and all these places. And then I would argue that more and more people were more intentional, because I would imagine, like me, we're about the same age. We're Gen X, right? Gen Xers, boomers, there's no Indigenous Peoples Day. Like, what is that? Like, I never heard of that until, it's been a while now, but it wasn't for most of my life. As a kid, it wasn't, right? So then when you hear about it, then you have a choice. What? So tell me more about that. Oh, really? So Columbus wasn't this hero and he wasn't this good guy. Okay, I see. So then that's the choice. So now that it is, Biden, the second year in a row, is calling it, Indigenous Peoples Day, which is,
yes,
perhaps performative, but still, I think overall a good thing, right?
Yes.
So there probably aren't that many people that aren't aware of this dilemma, and so because of that, then it truly is a choice. And so if one is still choosing to cling to Columbus Day, I'm curious about, what are the reasons behind that choice, which I think is going to be the foundation of this talk this evening.
Because I feel like for some people, there's that old adage. I work in Hollywood, so I know the adage. It's always been done this way. It's that lazy choice. So for some people, it's a lazy choice. I just don't feel like I have to think about something new. There's only two genders. That's it. I don't think about nothing else. There's pansexual. Another just gay and straight and bi. What's going on over here? Like, it's completely. I think for some people, it really is this lazy. I just don't want to think about. I don't want to change. I don't want to change the bylaws of this. Now I don't want to add signage. You and I both know it won't take 2 minutes to do stuff. But I think for maybe a small percentage, it's like your tradition, right? Just tradition. We just like, why we gotta not call it this, kind of thing. I think in some cases.
Well, what you're getting at, James, is this idea, and I've mentioned my work, not trying to do a plug for it, but I work for Translator Inc. Translator.company. Go check it out. But I facilitate trainings and dialogues and conversations and hold space and everything. And in one of them we talk about it's peripheral to this conversation, but it intersects enough. We talk about this idea of connection or disconnection. Like, how do we build connection, interpersonally, one-on-one, but in a workplace, in a community? What are the little things that either drive connection or drive disconnection? And one of them that drives disconnection is this need for certainty. So what you are talking about, those examples you gave, those are versions of people's need for certainty. And we rarely stop to think why do I care? Or do I even care that much? Or is it just, you said, it's too much to think about. And you could argue, well, hey, it's not that big a deal. Just take a couple minutes and consider it. But it actually is, because it's not even the time it takes to go, oh yeah, I could see that. That takes 5 seconds. I mean, it took me 3 seconds to do that, right?
Yes.
But it's not even that. But then it's then it's not certain. Because then, I'm going to have to learn more about this. I'm going to have to understand this if I'm going to kind of, take this side. And maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't want to Google, spend 10 minutes Googling about this. Maybe I don't, so that's what it is. So it's this need for certainty that's, there's a context of, whatever it is, laziness or. So I think a lot of it, and then of course there is very decidedly political.
Yeah.
And we can get to that whole angle, but I think there's a whole mass of people in the I don't know if neutral is the right word, but in the middle.
Yes.
They don't really feel that strongly. They just kind of I don't want to think of something new. So, forget about it. Like not even considering the ramifications and the implications of why there is even a new choice being offered.
And everything you just said, I completely agree. And that's the thing, is that like I said, I think I told a story before. I was with my cousins in Cleveland, and they're all colors. My white cousins, my black, we're all at a table. And we're sitting there talking about why the Wahoo and for the Cleveland is offensive to Indigenous people. And literally after 2 hours of this like intense conversation, it came down to, James, you're not from Cleveland.
Yeah.
This was black and white. I mean, like, this was all, it was both sides of my family. They were all, and it was like they came together as in, we're paying homage to them. This was not like anything, our intention was anything bad. I go, but a buck-toothed, red-faced, feather person, I mean, like, you don't see that. I mean, I think, again, it was that thought of, I'm not calling him racist or anything. I might even call him, either way. I'm just thinking, there could be some racism in there, who knows? But I think they just don't. I have my jerseys, and I have my hats, and I have my, this is what we call them. They're Cleveland Indians. That's a great name. Like, Indian's not a bad word, right? It's not bad. Why is it bad? They literally did not want to say about anything. I turned to nobody. I didn't turn no one. Now, the name has been changed, folks, and the wall has been taken apart. But I was saying that at that time, it came down to, James, they literally said, you're not a Clevelander, you're not from Cleveland, you don't understand.
Yeah. Well, and I think you add in, just the sports aspect of it. People are attached to their sports, whether it's their team, their city, their star athletes, people are attached to that too. So, if it was like the name of a downtown office building called, like maybe there wouldn't be that attachment, right? I mean,
right. You're right. No, you're right. That's true.
I mean, I'm being intentionally silly,
yes,
but it's like, oh wait, this is a team that I've supported for my whole life.
No, actually, wait.
I'm not defending that perspective.
No, before you go further,
I'm pointing it out.
Before you go further, I want to actually say, we should retract that, because there are certain places that are named that people do hold on to. I just thought about just now going, I'm saying not anything bad for. I'm just saying, I'm like, no, wait a minute. Actually,
yeah,
there are buildings and things that are named for certain people, and streets.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
That's true. That people hold on to. I'm sorry, just about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, probably not the best.
Yelling at us, going, "Nah," I'm like, no, it's like the racism everywhere. Yes.
I guess for me, and I feel like I can speak to this because for half of my life I didn't care.
Yes.
About, or I wasn't aware. I was attached to these types of things without even any sort of consideration or real depth to it. And so for me, it's kind of become like what kind of, it's like, what kind of person do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be the person that defends a rapist, pillager, murderer, slaughterer? I mean, let's just be honest, right? Or do you want to be the kind of person that sides with, like integrity and humanity and respect and people who, we were talking about it, my kids, they're 13, so they're pretty savvy, pretty intellectually savvy. And my son was just asking, I said, I'm not super tight on the chronology of which explorer came first and from which country. 1492, of course, is a date that we all remember. And we were just talking. It's like, yeah, it's not that unclear what happened. It's not. And what still 500 plus years later, I was in college, my freshman year in college, and the 500th anniversary of Columbus discovering America, it's like, oh great, woo, but so it's just kind of like, yeah, which side do you want to be on? And not even like on like Native Americans versus Columbus, or explorers, or Italians, or it's like the side of humanity. For me, that's kind of what it's become. And then it's kind of just an easy decision. And then I don't even get that charged up about it. Oh, tell me more about your insistence on Columbus Day. I'm really curious. And I am genuine. I try not to be mocking or patronizing, but it's like, oh, tell me more. That's interesting. Oh, okay. And, like often people don't really have a like a strong reason that they can articulate,
Yeah, but I always kind of compare it to a little bit with other things. Like I said, on my list, 2 female police people as a lead of a show. And even before Cagney Lacey, I go back to Police Woman. That's why I said Angie Dickinson. She was the first. It was all dudes.
Yeah.
And Homegirl came out and she was solving crimes. Same thing with all the blaxploitation movies. What you say you want to say about them, they made stars and they made Black folks feel comfortable. And Pam Grier was Coffee and she was Foxy Brown and she was a symbol. I mean, I remember people were against that at first. Like everybody's against everything at first, it seems like, because it was if we stayed the way we were, MTV is going to kill radio. Oh my God, we're going to actually listen to watch music. That's crazy. I mean, like it's like it didn't kill radio. Radio still make it goes all to this. All these advancements and changes still don't kill anything. They don't kill it.
Well, I mean, I keep saying that. I probably say this every show, but when you're used to privilege, equity feels like oppression.
Yes, it does.
So when you're used to whether it's, all the characters are white or the sports teams are racist names or, whatever the thing is, that it's just been the norm. And then there starts to be more movement and more political and policy change. And it's like, there's more talk about it. Instead of going like, yeah, that is kind of racist. Let's change that. Like, instead of going that, then it's like, I'm being attacked. Right?
It is. I mean, to laugh. I mean, the whole erasure thing, everybody being erased.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to be a white dude today, all this stuff. And it's just like, no one's trying to, well, at least people that I know, are not trying to erase you. They just want to be included. That's all. We just want to be at the table like you are, not at the kid table.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, and this is just one anecdote, and I'll just share it, and then we can see what it means or what it represents, if anything. When I was teaching second grade. This is probably like 04, maybe 04, 05. And is my first year at the school. I was only there for 2 years. My first year. So Columbus Day comes around. I'd only been there, a month, 5 weeks or whatever. And I was at a kind of more conservative school, and they still called it Columbus Day. But there was, this is 04. So there was movement, people who knew, and there were enough teachers and stuff. And so I remember talking to this dad, and his son was kind of struggling, and he was Italian American. I think his name was like Vito. I'm not even like making this up. It was like very like stereotypical. And so like, I think it was the Friday before the holiday. And he came in, we were talking, had something to do with, helping his son or whatever it was. And it was all good. Like, nothing big. And I said, all right, well, have a good 3-day weekend. Enjoy Indigenous Peoples Day. He's like, what's that? So yeah, Monday's the holiday. He's like, oh yeah, that's right. You mean Columbus Day? I said, well, yeah, Indigenous Peoples Day. He's like, oh, I've never heard of that before. And this is in Berkeley. And he didn't fight it. He wasn't getting aggressive or anything, but he was just like, oh, I think of it as like Italian heritage. I'm like, oh, well, and I wasn't going to like lecture this parent or anything, but
yeah, right.
But in his world, it was like, he hadn't even thought of it.
I know.
And
so how do we get to them? Like, if they're not buying your book, they're not watching my show because they're all homogenized and like nothing, because we know there are communities like that. They're either all Black or all Hispanic or all white. Or how do we penetrate them to even? Because I do believe there's some people who don't think they don't hear this stuff. They don't.
Yeah.
They watch. What is he nowadays? Before you say it, so nowadays everything's so now you can watch what you want to watch on TV and not have to watch what's given to you. But streaming and everything else, you can see what movies you want to watch. You can literally watch just Fox News all day long or CNN all day long, not to watch anything. You can your Twitter spaces can be the certain people you all think like you. Like you can be very insular now, which is very scary at some level too. Because now, like you said, now you don't have to broaden your horizons for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. You asked, like, how do you reach that, the Italian American parent who has, never heard of, and that was 18 years ago. So perhaps it's changed a little bit. But I think, I kind of joked a little bit about like Biden kind of, declaring it for 2 years in a row. Like, I think these things have to, whether it's politicians or movie stars or, whoever, like there has to be like a mainstreaming of some of these ideas, and that, I don't know if it's like an incubation period or like a navigation period where there is like, what do they say, like in product marketing, there's like the early adopters, and then there's like a whole like kind of curve of like, most of us are kind of in the middle, like, well, I'm not going to try that until it's proven. Oh, now, okay, you're okay, it's cool. Okay, I'll go buy it. Right. So I think it's that version when we're talking about social, political, ethical, equitable things. There's like, it's like the same, it's like a new product to a lot of people. It's a new way of thinking. And I also think that we meaning we who care about this stuff and understand its importance and its essentialness, have to remember, like, we don't have to reach everyone. Like, I can say with pretty confidence, like, there's never going to be a time in history where like everyone, where it's like 100%, whatever, 100% anti-racist or 100%.
You're right.
So we make progress and we get laws passed and we try to change systems as much as we can, and we normalize these things, even in the face of opposition, however, silly or strong it is, or unexamined it is. And I think, that's what we're doing. That's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing in our spheres of influence. And so, I think that's how we move forward.
That's how I as the young kids say, I get to smoke, they said online, because I press questions that I think some folks really don't think about. Like I for example, I talk about colorism on soap operas. If you have an actor, there's some actors who are the character, part of their coloring was part of the character. So every time they recast the role, they're getting lighter and lighter and lighter and like. And there's one role on this soap, General Hospital. All three ladies were every shade of brown. I mean, very noticeably different shades, like from damn near white to dark, dark, dark.
Yeah.
So, and I call it out. And I said, with white actors, many times they try to find someone who looks similar to the other one. They'll even dye their hair the same color, like they'll do all this stuff. But with black actors, there was one time, and I laughed out, I literally guffawed out loud when this guy who's a regular black dude, like me, big guy, kind of hefty guy, brown skin, dark goatee. They had a person come on temporary to play his role. The guy was super skinny, total bottle tight, and had a white beard. Somebody said, "Hey, you black man off the street, can you just come in for a second and just for today?" And I was like, and I started bringing stuff out. And most of the blacks was like, "Yeah, James, I told you." Then others will go, "Why does it matter? It's just a recast. Who cares what they look like?" I'm like, that to me is still the integrity of the show, and the character is still, and it's a lazy thing. Maybe the person isn't racist, the casting director, but it means they're also just being lazily about it. But they're in a weird way, they are being racist in a weird way because they're not thinking about it.
Well, then it gets back into the, you said, like, why do you care? Why does it matter? Like,
right.
Why does it not matter? And why does it matter to you that it allegedly doesn't matter? Right. And so, like, that's the question I think needs to be asked more often is, and I think, there are, of course, avowed racist, avowed sex, it's clear, right? Homophobes, transphobes, all the things, right?
Yes.
But I think there's that, again, that big middle, 70-80% of people who don't think about, like, when something's brought to their attention, there's like this, even if it's not like a direct accusation or an implication, it's like, I have to get defensive. I'm not familiar with this. I have to have a stand. And since I'm not familiar with it, I can't take the stand of, oh yeah, that's cool. So I have to take the opposite stand, which is, fuck that. I'm not going to, and then it becomes this thing where it's like, you don't really even care that much, but you're speaking as if you do. And then the more conversation starts, you're going to dig in more because you can't go back. I've already stated that I'm not going to go there. And now you keep trying to, change me. And then it becomes like your stand when it really isn't.
The hill to die on.
Yeah. Or equally as bad, you just dismiss it out of hand and you gaslight, trivialize, and you're like, right. But it's the same end result.
Yeah.
But there's no dialogue, there's no movement, as you said, like with your family in Cleveland, there's no, not even conversion, but no like evolution.
Nope.
And so I'm always interested in, and I write about this a lot in the book, like whether it's anti-racism, whatever the social justice, equitable cause is, like we have to be willing to have try to have dialogues around this stuff, because if we come in as social justice warriors and bomb throwers, which I was for 10 plus years, it doesn't actually work. And it might be frustrating to have a conversation with someone and you're like, don't you, and not seeing movement. But to me, that's lazy. If I'm, trying to have a dialogue with someone who's like digging in about something I know they don't care about, and I just say, well, screw you, and then I leave, well, then I'm contributing to the perpetuity of the problem.
But here's the issue. You've got a really good point here.
And I know I'm right.
Yeah, well, I was saying. So I was going to say. He said, I was saying this is a true issue for people of color.
Yep.
Or BIPOC people. Well, I'm tired of trying to teach white folks how to act.
Totally.
I'm trying to be the voice of Black America. I'm trying to be, and it's one of those things like, if they shut down, then fuck them. That's the sentiment for many, not all, because some people still try to keep going through. But I'm glad you said it, because that is a real, there's this kind of blockage that happens where it's just like, and then the other person gets tired, the fatigue of just like, I'm trying to just get, because I know on our end, well, we see things through a certain lens. Obviously, if you're a person of color, a BIPOC person, you see things through a certain lens. Just anyway, and if you're a white person, you see things through a certain lens too. But I know for us, a lot of times we'll see that injustice that's shown to us. Just speaking of Indigenous Peoples Day and thinking of what Columbus and his people did while they were here, to everybody. I mean, everybody was fucked. Everybody got fucked when they were here. If you think about it, everybody got it. But you're told this person did, like you listed it earlier, did this, and this. And someone we go, wow, that is horrible. But it's perceived as some, not all, some white folks go, well, that was a long time ago. That wasn't me. I'm not related to him. I don't rape and pillage. Well, I hope you don't. I hope you don't rape and pillage, obviously. That would be a good thing. But it's always that separation.
Yeah.
That's it seems like the only one thing, and now it's changing now, it's kind of scary. Everybody's kind of like, Hitler was bad. It's like everybody kind of agreed for a while. When we were growing up, Nazis were bad. It was all bad. Now we're seeing some differences happening with that too. But, in slavery, when I grew up and you grew up, slavery was bad. Didn't matter who it came from. I don't care if it was Chinese, Black, slavery was bad. I'm seeing things. I'm going, wow, am I really reading this right now? Am I really seeing that book banned because it mentioned, it's getting to this point where you're like, wow, I'm in a Twilight Zone.
Well, I mean, you bring up so many good points, as you always do, James.
Always inspired by you, because you bring up good points to me. That's always inspired by you.
Well, people kind of mock it, like the culture wars, but it really is about, when I was saying earlier about like normalizing, like some of this nonsense is being re-normalized, right? By Trump, of course, was a big, contributor to that, but it's not only him, but he kind of enabled it the last, 6 years now or so, or longer, 7-8 years, right? Like, and so how do we like normalize? So I think, I keep coming back to this concept of like being invested in and being committed to change, but not being attached to outcomes. Because it can be, and I speak for myself, but I can imagine anyone who cares about justice and equity and inclusion and change, like, we want fucking change.
Right. Basically,
We want like this nonsense to stop in all its manifestations in social, in political, in media, in sports and everything. Like, we want it to change, and it just doesn't. It doesn't happen that way, and it never has, and it never will. It doesn't happen, like, because and so. But then, what I'm not saying is like, oh, so then we just accept it. It's not like like a condoning. It's an acceptance of like, yeah, things take time. So how do we stay in it for the long haul and keep our voices individually and collectively, with things like this, like having these different perspectives and these nuances and these conversations. And, hopefully if enough of us are doing this in our own ways, in our own spheres of influence, then, you tip that tide a little bit. And I'm not just talking about who gets elected president and the, governors, and yes, that's part of it, but it's more than that. Right. So like, I hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, millennials and Gen Z, like they don't, they're over all that stuff. It's like, yeah, in some ways, but not all. I wouldn't say universally. There are like racist, highly conservative, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, 20-year-olds out there who are entering into the, the voting world. Like, it's not just like, oh, everyone who's under 30 gets it. It's like, no. No.
Yeah.
So I think, we're making progress, as a society, but as Ibram Kendi points out, and others, like, it's not just this like one way, slightly ascending, path of progress.
Yeah.
Right. There's always backlash.
And I mean, because what you just said earlier, it's like the truth. We just want fucking change. We're at the point where it's just like, I just want change. And that's like, but we have to kind of, even like you said earlier, it will never be 100%. We know that. But many times we just want a seat at the table with the idea. And like the people actually go, I see what you're saying. Even if they don't practice it, I'm just like see what we're saying. Because it seems like it feels like sometimes we can't even get to that point.
Yeah.
Just the kind of acknowledgement. He was a horrible person. I see it. Yeah. I know you see it too, right? We want the acknowledgement of like, yes, I see it too. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay, you see it too. Got it.
Well, and I think, did I hear Renee Brown at the end of your list?
Yes, I did.
I'm curious about her inclusion and what if you have a story around that, because I am a fan of Renee Brown, and I also understand some of the criticism of her being a white woman kind of coming into these spaces. I mean, we could have a whole 3 or 4 shows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Just on Renee Brown.
Yeah.
But now I forgot the point I was going to make about.
When you get older, that happens.
Yeah, exactly. What was I going to say about Renee Brown? I don't remember. But anyway, Renee Brown.
Yeah. When it comes to you as we're talking, when it comes to your name, James, it came to me because we're all just shout out at me. No, but the thing is, for me is there are people out there who are trying to affect change, like Renee Brown. That really are trying to really look within and show, and let's say, see everything for what it is. The sentence that changed my life, I mean, like seriously changed my life about 5 years ago, was from her. The definition of forgiveness, she said, is giving up the hope the past could be any different.
Yes, I know that line.
That changed my life. It clicked with my personal life, everything. It changed everything for me. But it's almost like the stuff is there. It happened. There's nothing that's going to take it away. There's nothing. So we got to live for today, kind of like work through that shit, get through the trauma, all that kind of stuff. And there's ways to do that. In coaching, you said something that in coaching, we're supposed to help people without worrying about the outcome. You said it earlier, like that's what we're taught. When the first we're taught coaching, they always say you're off the hook, James. You will give them the tools. Like I have coaching clients, and I give them the tools. We work through stuff, but in the end, I can't worry about what their outcome is going to be. I can hope for them and wish for them great things.
Yeah.
It's not my job.
It's not. I remember what I was going to say about Renee Brown.
Good.
She talks about the difference between like empathy and sympathy, right? She has that. There's an awesome little 3-minute animated clip of one of her TED Talks, and someone animated this whole thing. It's brilliant. I've watched it dozens of times. But she says something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, like, you know, we think empathy is like, you know, doing something or solving the problem, and that's not it. And she says at the end of that video, and you can just Google Renee Brown animated video and you'll find it. It's like a little 3-minute clip. You know, like empathy is like, you know what? I don't know what to say right now. I'm just glad you told me. Right? So acknowledgement, and that, you know, that if we're like close friends, you know, relationships, you know, the language might shift a little bit, but hey, you know, I hear you and I believe you. Right? If you're not, like, whatever the context is, whatever your, you know, if your manager or colleague or this or that or neighbor, or like, you know, the context will shift a little bit, but the idea of what you said is just like acknowledgement. And now, does that solve the problem? No. Like, but then it's like, oh, well, maybe this person is going to be someone who can help me when I do get to where I need the problem actually solved.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what it does for some of them. Okay, it must be another voice of Black America. I'm going to tell you, but what I know for me,
you're not. I think of you as that, James.
You know, some people do. Trust me, I'm not. But I'm telling you, some folks do that. I do in my circle. It's the acknowledgement of not being gaslit. Mm-hmm. It's really that simple. It's that, oh my God, they hear me. Okay, they hear me and they're acknowledging what I'm saying to be the truth that I feel or whatever, or they feel the same truth, or it's almost like trying to find people like, oh my God, you believe what I do too. Okay, good. I'm not crazy. Or, you know, it's not just, oh, here's someone we think I'm crazy, but no, I'm not crazy. Okay, good. It's just, you know, you saw it too, right? Okay, great. Because a lot of my life, I've been gaslit.
Mm-hmm.
Even times I didn't even know I was being gaslit. I was being gaslit, and I started figuring out as an adult what was happening when I knew certain facts. I'm a big factual person. When certain facts were there and I was still being told, no, James, that didn't happen that way. Are you crazy? Like, okay, I see what's going on here. Got it.
Well, I'm glad you brought your personal example in. And by the way, I see you and I believe you. And I think it's a good analogy to what we started the conversation off. Like, we know what happened historically, and not just in the United States, in all of what's now the United States, right? But like all the Americas, the Caribbean, Central America, you know, like people came over because they were explorers. Cool. You like to explore and sail. Great. Awesome. You know, but what was the intent? The intent was to find riches and gold. And then, okay, so you found some of that. And then you also found people. So instead of going like, oh, like, this is cool. Like, oh, you're already living here and you do that and you speak that way and you eat that food and that's so cool. Like, did they do that? No. Right. So, I mean, I don't know if that's exactly gaslighting.
I like that. I love the example, but
you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a choice. So going back to 2022, like, what are you going to choose to do? Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day? Let's go back to 1492. What are you going to choose to do? Like, meet new people and be cool and curious, or meet new people and slaughter them? Well, we know what happens. Like, there's no, right? And so that's like the choice. So, I mean, I know maybe that's not a fair analogy because it's, I know where
you're going.
But you see where I'm going? And I think people don't see that as a choice.
Right.
Or if they do, they intentionally, as you said earlier, like choose, the other way.
It's right now. And I want to go to chat room for a second because we have some people watching. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. What was just said, it's such a relief being acknowledged and not being gaslit. Person says, sometimes you really got to take a step back away from that manipulation. Let's see. We want to be open, but we learned about everyone's culture all day long through school, media, etc. And now we have to explain ourselves on a daily basis, smaller scale. Being represented properly does help. Thank you. Yes, they cast white families look alike. Yes, that's very true. They asked us, yeah, how do you discover something was already here? He basically said that, basically. John Tyler High School is renamed. I know nothing about John Tyler, except he was our 10th president. Okay. And question for us. Hey, this person's in Massachusetts. We celebrate St. Patrick's Day. How about you guys? I do. I know how many. I don't know the history. I don't know the history of St. It's a big deal in New York because I was Irish there. I've drank Irish car bombs. I was blue in the face on. I mean, I don't know. In San Francisco, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't celebrate it, but I think this is a lacuna for me. So it's like, hey, like do some research on.
Me too. I was like, I don't know.
I mean, this is good. And so for me, and it sounds like you too. It's like, oh, so I mean, in a way, this is what we're talking about.
Yes.
Like, you know what? But here's the thing. Here's how I will answer this. I don't know the history and the racist barometer of St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
But my suspicion is that there's probably something fucked up about it.
I'm the same thing. Me too. Probably. I mean,
right. And so my job now is to go and like find out if that's true and to the degree and understand what it is. Right.
And maybe we'll do a mini episode, me and him, on that. We're gonna both do a little research, and I'll talk to him. Maybe we'll do a little mini episode on that, or a segment on that, or something really quick. So, that could be something for us. That's something to look at. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. So I'm glad this person.
I know. Like that's a chatter. Thank you, James. I don't because I just know there's some large Irish community, obviously in Boston, but it also is one in New York, and we have Puerto Rican Day also, which a lot of folks get upset about. But like a lot of Puerto Ricans are in New York. I mean, it's kind of that's what they put it together, and it happens every year. But I know St. Patrick's Day parade is also just as big as the Puerto Rican Day and as the Macy's Thanksgiving. They're all huge events.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is where the nuance comes in again, where I don't know, is like there's almost always a both and. Right. So perhaps, and again, we'll do our research and we'll find out, right? Perhaps like St. Patrick's Day is like a legit thing, and there's some reason for Irish folks or Irish Americans.
Yes.
And what I can say is that just like Cinco de Mayo and these other they've been commodified and bastardized, where it's like and mocked and I mean people one of my kids' assignments, Halloween's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact nature. Maybe it's just as simple as like, hey, when you're out like Halloween shopping and getting candy and looking for your costumes, and you're going to these costume stores, like find like 10 examples of like racist or assimilation stuff. I'm like, only 10? That'll be easy for you.
Yeah, I'm like, just go to those Halloween superstores. You'll see it all there. Yes.
So anyway, I mean, but you see that all the time, and like people, I mean, I think we've mentioned Megyn Kelly on this show before. That was a while ago, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Just the whole, actually, a perfect example of like, she's made aware of the history of blackface and why it's a problem, and yet she still digs in.
Yes.
Instead of going like, oh wow, okay, I get it. Yeah, that's kind of messed up.
Yes.
She digs in.
Yes.
Santa Claus is white. He just is. Jesus is white. He just is.
Just is. My black grandmother, who's very black, but Jesus is white.
Well, there's that too. Internalized racism bias.
Well, and we're going to wrap up. He has the early morning because I'm like, we could talk for hours.
I know.
You brought some other things because another thing that happened, the Queen passed away since we talked.
Oh, that's right.
And I had this whole discussion with my Caribbean family and friends who are in the British parts of the Caribbean. The generational divide in Barbados and St. Kitts, how the older ones still value the Queen, the younger ones are like, fuck the Queen, and all the stuff that came with it, the racism came with it. So there's a whole other world with that too. And talk about change and accepting like what's really out there and versus always just kind of accepting what's given. There's part of this also. And I think it's what people's like, why are you stirring up the pot? Because it's just been fine. It's a harmless little holiday. Well, I mean, come on, Jared. I mean, who gives a fuck? It's just, so it's Columbus Day. So we're celebrating America, right?
Well, it's interesting you bring up, and that is like such a, I think an odd rebuttal, like stirring up the pot. Yeah. You're stirring up the pot because there's a black, mermaid. You're stirring up the pot because you're stirring up the pot because gays want to get married. You're stirring up the pot. It's like, is it really stirring up the pot?
Right.
But I think, and this is, this is just kind of how I try to operate. It's easy to be kind of get pulled into that type of discussion. And well, no, it's not stirring up the pot and fuck you. And here's what, and then it just devolves. Yes. It's just this devolution of nonsense. And so how do we, when we're presented with this, whether it's direct, like someone, arguing with us, or just it's out there, how do we say what we need to say with conviction and clarity, but not get into like an argument or a fight?
I say a fight. You can argue. An argument, debate, a heated debate, I think that's fine. But I like until a fight.
But
passionate debates.
Well, it's nuanced because, like, what do we want the and I know we're talking about like not getting attached to outcomes, but what do we want the outcome of any particular conversation to be? Like, or not even the outcome, but like the legacy of it. So like we talk about when we go into these 90-minute sessions in corporate, like, and we're trying to get people to contribute, and some are shy and they're introvert and they have their camera off, and who knows what they're doing if they're actually listening. But we say, hey, what is going to be your legacy to these 90 minutes? Yeah. All right. So what do we want the legacy of whatever the dialogue has, whether it's on LinkedIn or on this show or on wherever? And, we have to like almost like trust people. Like, we may not have instant gratification. Like, we won. I said X and everyone like applauded and we won. Like, it's not going to be that way. It's like, oh, an hour later, gosh, I was reflecting on that discussion that they were having, and yeah, that was really powerful. Right? We have to kind of trust that people are gonna. So to get that reaction, we have to be intentional about how we show up in these conversations.
And that's where we'll end it. Perfect ending, Derek. That's what we're gonna do. We'll be back again. I'm gonna get after the show. Always asking for a date. Ask him out on a date. Ask for a date, and we'll have no date for you guys. But thank you, Jared, for being on. I always appreciate you, very much. Always, I love these discussions. We could go on forever. I love talking to you about this stuff. It's crazy talk. Tell people where they can find you and all your goodness.
Yeah, probably the best place is just go to a white guy confronting racism.com. It'll take you right to the book, where you can get all over the place, including highlighted a lot of Black-owned bookstores, which is very intentional. And I'm not doing that much social media these days. I guess LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn less often than other places. So if you really want to connect with me, you can Jared Karol, Karol, Jared Karol, on LinkedIn, and we can go from there.
I'm saying if folks want to hire you to facilitate, I want them to get to you. So go to his LinkedIn.
Go to LinkedIn or jaredkarol.com.
I have and I'll get you in touch with them.
Yeah, go to James. James will stalk me, track me down. He has my cell phone number now, which I don't know, maybe it was a mistake, but hey, we got to that point in our relationship where it felt like natural to share phone numbers.
It was time. It was almost, I think it's over a year. I don't know how long at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know for some folks it's just easier. Contact me. I'll get you in touch with him. I'm like, give him some business, or if you get some advice, you go to him. So on his end. And of course I'm James Lott Jr. everywhere. ALottahelp.com is the website. Thank you so much for being up with us, GH fan, Sherry. I'm just getting people in the chat room. Crystal. We'll try to scroll up. Jacarius, Christy, Sis, V, all you guys, everybody, the ones who didn't chat and who are just watching, thank you.
Yeah, 1 a.m. on the East Coast. That's on a Monday night. So thank you.
Like I said, racism does not sleep. And